Hey, Puppy Trades! I noticed that Avalanche was trending. I think I might be able to predict the future of Avalanche with Elliott Wave theory. And we'll even talk a little bit about, we can't say the word astrology, but the quarters, right? W.D. Gann, he had to call it astrology in the 20s. J.P. Morgan, he was so rich, he didn't care. He told people he was doing astrology. But we don't have to. No, we don't have to. Thankfully, the nice people running the stock market decided that all the quad witching dates would be the equinoxes and the solstices. Thank you. Thank you. So let's look right here. We see September. The September fourth quarter begins, the third quarter ends. We have this quad witching date. So the quarter ends, and that's kind of like a new period for a report card, so to say. It's a new quarter. Remember when you were a kid, the new quarter started? You got to start over, right? It was like all your C's and B's never happened, all your detentions and your marks never happened. Started fresh, right? So we got this fresh new quarter starting in September, the fall equinox, and then what do you know? I pointed this out with Soundhound, so maybe people will care. I also pointed this out with Old Dominion Freight and Union Pacific, and I believe Canadian Pacific Railways or Kansas City Railways. Anyway, they had their tops right before the first quarter ended, and I talked about how they could bottom right before the third quarter began, or as the third quarter began, we saw Soundhound and a few of these stocks that I've talked about for third quarter rotations. Anyway, so right before the third quarter ends, we see Avalanche, puts in this big peak. Then it's going to be called Wave 1, Wave A. It's a clear 1, 2. Look at this Wave 3 making the highest high on the RSI within the cycle. We have a Wave 4 that retests 50, and then we on the RSI, and then we have a Wave 5 that ends with momentum divergence. So I believe this is a pretty clean impulse. I think that this is 5 waves up for Wave 1, Wave A. This is an A, B, C, Wave 2 correction at the 127.2% extension. So I believe 22.0874 is going to hold. And above 22.0874, the length of Wave 1, Wave A, placed at the Wave 2, Wave B low, I suspect is going to be met for the Wave 3, Wave C target. So that target is going to be 78.4. Now, when could this happen? Notice we put in this bottom right here, right after the summer solstice, as well as the third quarter beginning and the second quarter ending, right? So we have this new quarter. Do we potentially have a new rally? And do we know how long this rally is gonna last? Or can we at least give a logical time and price target for Avalanche? I think the Elliott Wave theorists can. This is Wave 1, Wave A. This is A, B, C, Wave 2, Wave B. So we had March spring equinox. So we had September fall equinox. We had March spring equinox for Wave 1, Wave A. Will Wave 2, Wave B begin with the summer solstice in the third quarter? And will it end by the winter solstice? Or at least the target will be met by the winter solstice, the end of the fourth quarter. Now, I know that seems like a little bit of woo, but let's remember the sun's journey in some of this. When the fall equinox starts, we have the Jewish New Year begin, and this is why Noah, he sails to Mount Ararat. Right? He sails to Mount Ararat. He sails from late September to April. He's in a flood. He's in a flood. Why is he in a flood? Well, because the sun is now darker than the night after September. After the fall equinox, the sun is darker than the night. And it stays darker than the night until the March equinox. So that's when Noah lands on Mount Ararat. And then what happens right after that? We're introduced to Abram. Abram, who is April. And then what's right after Abram, who is April? He sacrifices his son, or he's about to sacrifice his son, Isaac. But what's he do? He switches his son with the ram, Aries, which is why the Jewish people blow the ram's horn. So we sail from the fall equinox to the spring equinox. We land on Mount Ararat. We have April begin. Now, for this A, B, C correction, a new quarter, and it's right around the summer solstice. So we're looking at the zodiacal cross. March and September form the equinoxes. So Jesus, the Son, he's crucified on the cross. So what's going on here? We had wave 1 start. We had wave 1 end. Wave 1 start, wave 1 end. Now what happened with the June equinox? We had this big correction, and we had this correction all the way down until the summer solstice began. So the summer solstice is right here. Wave 2 starts. Wave 2 starts at the summer solstice. This is when the sun is at its highest peak. So wave 1 actually starts on this side of the cross. The sun is at its highest peak. Wave 1 starts when the fall equinox is. And it goes all the way into the spring equinox, which is in March. So, for wave 2, wave B, if it starts with the June equinox, I believe it's going to end with if it starts with the summer solstice, I believe wave 2 is going to end at the winter solstice, or by the winter solstice. From an Elliott wave perspective, that would line up perfectly with this time fib where I connect the beginning of wave 1 with the high of wave 1. We end wave 2, wave B at the 5 time fib. I believe we're in a bull period until the 8 time fib, which is 10/27/2024. So this is a completed ABC correction, and I believe that another piece of evidence is that this is 6 months. I believe this is going to be 6 months, taking Avalanche to 78 by late December, early January. Now, let's look at Pepsi. Pepsi came on an interesting screen of mine. It came on a fundamental economic dividend screen. So I have a fundamental economic dividend screen that I use. It's actually a very popular one. You know, a lot of people on FinTwit follow the account, but they don't know how to use it the way I do because I'm the best, right? So I use a fundamental economic dividend screen that a lot of people on FinTwit follow. But I'm, more advanced in my analysis. I know how to analyze the data better than most of these FinTwitters. So Pepsi appeared on that screen, I believe, at a very interesting time. 1, 2, wave 3 makes the highest high on the weekly RSI. We have a shallow wave 4 and a wave 5 that ends with momentum divergence. we have an A, B, C correction. And so I believe, and we look at this ABC correction, the length of wave A, place of the wave B high, is met at the 100% extension where wave C ends. I think from this low, this is a wave 1 and a wave 2. I'm looking for a wave 3 to begin. Ways to get that target on the smaller degree, taking the 127.2% extension, which is 193, before a shallow wave 4 and a wave 5 higher. Ultimately, I believe Pepsi is going to hold above 158.03. I think that's the ideal level. 155 is a little wide, but 155.83 is going to be the invalidation because it's the beginning of wave 1. I think this is wave 1, wave A. This is wave 2, wave B. Pepsi, I expect to enter wave 3, wave C, above those levels in the long term towards the 250s. In the shorter term, up to about 192.